So it's 10 minutes past midnight on, well, it's now the 16th of April, and Notre Dame is burning, and it's been burning for 6-7 hours. Don't really know what the extent of the damage is yet, but people are throwing around words like gutted and devastating. So, but the images that we do have, the pictures on the news, do seem to point to that. And I wanted to talk about it because I'd like to try and pinpoint, I suppose, pinpoint and figure out exactly what I'm feeling and what I'm witnessing about this. I'm just really shocked. And I know that's really basic language, but I'm just shocked. I can't believe that this has happened, and I'm speechless. I'm really speechless because it's unprecedented. It's unprecedented. This is a building that is so significant, and I don't just mean significant sort of architecturally, or it's not even that it's significant in culture or in our civilization. It's present. It has a presence in our collective imagination and in our collective reality and community through its role as not a civic building, but a building in a city. Obviously, as a religious building, as a symbol of Paris and of France, but also obviously in film and in literature, and like I said, just the public imagination and the public idea of what the world is, and it seemed so solid and monumental. Well, it was so solid and monumental, and it's been there for 850 years. And one of the things that has kind of kept taking me aback today, whilst in those moments where I remember that this is happening and I'm sort of slowly processing it, I keep thinking of events or periods in history that this building has made it through. You know, this is a building that has been at the very, very centre of the very, very centre of historic Paris and historic France and historic Europe through so much. You know, obviously just within French history, through the Revolution and the Commune, and you know, there it is. You see the towers of this building in the backdrop of Delacroix's Liberty Leading the People, and you know, there's obviously Victor Hugo, and you know, the Nazi occupation, and you know, the bells ringing out, and these bells are rung through the entirety of the last 900 years of French and European history, and it's just been gutted, and it's gone. Or if it's not gone, it's certainly lost. It's as it was. It's irretrievable. I think the most important thing about it that's irretrievable is its sense of permanence. It's quite unsettling, really. It's very surreal, and yeah, and I think another thing I wanted to sort of comment on and think about is that in my lifetime, I can't really remember an event or a news story, I should say, that has affected me, or even visibly sort of affected people around me in this way. I think that's interesting because, you know, even within Paris, we've seen a lot of attacks, and you know, we've seen things that have been shocking, and are obviously horrendously tragic and sad events. People being targeted and killed in attacks, in terrorist attacks predominantly, or you know, gun massacres or shootings or whatever. And you know, these things are. I'm not going to try and say that like we're desensitized to these things to the point where they don't leave an impact. You know, they are always upsetting. But you know, somebody goes into wherever in Paris and shoots 30 people. Obviously, it's devastating and horrendously sad for all the people that it happens to, and you know, I mean, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But inevitably, life just kind of continues, and the only people that life will not be the same for will be really the people that it's directly affected. But this is something that is kind of affecting everybody, or people on a wider. You know, I'm much more affected by this. I'm much more affected by this than I have been by any terrorist attacks in my life. Because I don't know. I don't really know why that is. I'm sure there'll be, you know, there's probably argument out there that maybe I've just seen too many terrorist attacks. But I don't think that's it, really. Obviously, I've grown up in a post 9/11 world, and you know, those planes hitting the towers has been etched into my understanding of the world. And you know, a big monumental event like that with such a catastrophic narrative and also such catastrophic imagery has always been part of my mental language. And it's something I've always seen. I've never seen it for the first time, not really. But even then, I think that, you know, the World Trade Center, which is probably the last thing to have some kind of, for me, to have some kind of parallels with this. And obviously, you know, it's the World Trade Center was obviously an attack on American people, and American people died. But it was also kind of a symbolic attack on New York. You know, this kind of Jerusalem of the West, and also within New York, the World Trade Center, you know, a massive financial business center. You know, it's a symbolic attack. It wasn't just about killing lots of people, although obviously it did. It was about killing New York, and I get the impression that for a little bit, it did. And whilst New York has continued, it's certainly different. And the whole of America is different, and the whole of the West is different. But Notre Dame, you know, this is something that's not a terrorist attack. And nobody's died or even been injured. We can hope, obviously, that nobody's died, nobody's been injured, but even so, the casualty has been the building. And it's just really sad. I mean, I don't know, I could say, oh, I'm grateful that I went, but I am grateful that I went, obviously. I'm grateful that I went, and I'm grateful that I saw it. But that's irrelevant, really. I think that that's not important. I think that Notre Dame's burning. It's been gutted. They're talking about the windows melting, the stained glass windows melting, that glorious and immense rose stained glass window just melting and gone. I've never understood. I've never understood really, or been able to grasp why people were crying in the street when Princess Diana died. I didn't live through her life. I can never really understand kind of how much she, maybe meant or symbolised to people. And obviously she died very suddenly, very tragically, and she was young, and all these kind of things. And she was a very public figure. But I can see why people were I can see why people were crying, why there was such a public outpouring, because I feel, when I kind of remind myself and I see pictures of this cathedral, this icon, burning, and thinking ahead about, when we get to the point where the fire's been put out and we really get a sense of the damage, the disbelief, and when we move through the disbelief and we just confront the loss, it's really sad. It's really sad and affecting, deeply affecting. And I wish that there was something I could do, even if obviously there's nothing we can do to help the cathedral, and there are plenty of other things that need more help in lots of ways, but even just do something to capture this public mood, or not even public mood, the mood of individuals, that I'm kind of seeing through things like social media, and even just talking to a couple of people that I know. Like, people are finding this so upsetting, and I think there are probably people who don't understand why people are finding it upsetting, and they're just kind of like, well, it's sad, that's a shame, what a waste. But that's kind of it. They're just like, that's, like, God, how sad. But like, people are really upset about this, and I am absolutely one of them. I'm absolutely one of them. So, yeah, I don't really know what else to say, but inevitably there will be a restoration, and the bells will ring, but they won't ring again. They will ring in a new way, and that new way of ringing, and this new life for the cathedral, will continue and prosper for, who knows, hopefully considerably longer than the next 850 years. It sounds a bit absurd to me, but I am convinced that at some point I'm going to cry about this, and I felt it nearly happen a handful of times. But we'll see. I've just found this selection of quotes from Victor Hugo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I just wanted to read them. So the first one describes the sightings of Quasimodo atop the bell towers. It describes him climbing, twisting, crawling on all fours, coming down the wall high overhead, hopping from one projection to another. The whole cathedral took on a fantastic, supernatural and frightening aspect. Eyes and mouths would open here and there. Strange noises could be heard coming from the stone dogs, serpents and monsters, which day and night kept watch around the edifice with outstretched necks and gaping jaws. And then when he's describing the cathedral long after the death of Quasimodo, he calls it deserted and lifeless. That immense body is empty, nothing but a skeleton. The spirit has vanished. It is like a skull, in which there are still 2 sockets, but no eyes.